Okay, to our audience, both in person and on Zoom, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm Jay Taryn Diamond, a studio manager and teaching fellow here at the Baltimore Jewelry Center, and we're so happy to have Shaunia Grant here tonight for an artist talk. Shaunia is here as part of our residency program, which is one of our core programs. We offer 4 different types of residencies for artists at different places in their careers. Shaunia Grant is an object maker and craft educator, born and raised in the border town of Las Cruces, New Mexico. They hold a BFA in studio art from New Mexico State University, as well as an MFA in studio art from the University of Georgia. Their identity as a queer, indigenous Latinx person informs their material language as a maker and scholar, as they consider notions of desire and contend with a complicated relationship with sentimentality. Over the past 3 months, Shaunia has been investigating the form and materiality of traditional Victorian hair jewelry in the context of contemporary queer bodies and desire. It's been an absolute delight to have Shaunia in the studio for the past 3 months. All of us at the BJC have been so grateful for the opportunity to witness their approach to material and its relationship to the body, but that's something they're better qualified to tell you about than I am. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Shaunia.
Thank you very much, Jay. Hello, I'm gonna have to adjust because I am much shorter. I'm gonna start the screen share. How's it going? All right. Hi, y'all. I'm Shaunia Grant, as mentioned, and I've been a resident here at the Baltimore Jewelry Center for 3 months. Something that will become very obvious in this presentation is that I am a huge dyke, and I am very proud of it. Just letting you know. I grew up in the borderlands of New Mexico and Mexico, experiencing diaspora from a space that was so close I could sometimes see it, but kept away by walls and fences and Border Patrol agents. From there, I moved to Georgia for graduate school, where I attended the University of Georgia and was able to bloom and blossom into my gender and sexuality while furthering my work as a maker and a teacher, which has become a passion of mine. So we're starting way back here. This is the first conceptual piece of jewelry that I ever made. This is probably my 3rd semester of undergrad that I made this work, and I was very adamant about being a painter. This piece, Regurgitation, was the first time I felt like I was able to express what I wanted through a physical object, and also one of the first times I ever made an object that was like 3-dimensional and tangible. Still, I resisted, and I only took jewelry again because I was guilted into taking jewelry. Thank God for that. But this work is a chainmail base woven with flowers and held in the wearer's mouth with a silver apparatus. It's referencing the times that you feel so ill that the only solution is to throw up and feel better, and searching for an emotional parallel to that solution. After a program of many tries and many paths, guided by my undergraduate professor, Motoko Furuashi, I graduated with my BFA from New Mexico State University. All of my interests and materials and my struggles with being in a queer, chronically ill body culminated in this work. This work is white powder-coated structures filled with pig intestines that have been stuffed with various pills. The stuffing of stuff in other stuff is kind of like a theme in my work and has been a theme for a long time. This work was also made in my garage because it was right as the shutdown happened. So everyone's favorite thing is that I rounded these. I did not have a mandrel, so they've been hammered onto glass cups and somehow worked. When I moved across the country, I left this work behind. I was thrust into a totally alien environment of the American South. This new place, along with a need to unpack my experiences as a queer person, and the exhaustion of talking so much about my body in such a difficult way, created a new path for my practice. These pieces here are electroplated copper foil brooches that are meticulously painted to memorialize torn wrapping paper. So each one of these pieces is a brooch. And I have designed and painted all of them. So they're, you can't really see it in this picture, but on the back, they also have like perforated lines and little scissors. And that is my favorite part, but I somehow don't have any pictures of it, you know? So this work, a lot of this work came from the feelings of grief and anxiety from displacement and the official mourning of my childhood and all of the expectations from it. This work, Remnant, was one of the final works of my graduate school career. It began an interest in silhouette. So this sort of like outside silhouette shape of the piece is actually the outline of a pile of confetti on the ground that I like carefully outlined and then cut the metal and plastic into that shape. It also pushed my work into a place that it had never really been. And it's sort of like beginning a place of hope and healing. A lot of my work before that was much more oriented in like grief and pain. Inside the necklace is confetti that I purchased in Palomas, Mexico on my birthday. This confetti is used in cascaras, which are eggshells that are emptied and then stuffed with confetti. And then they are to be smashed against your loved ones' heads during Easter. So while this confetti is constricted within its little cage, it's starting to fight back in the cage and leaving an undeniable trace behind. Every gallerist totally loves when I show this piece. And when I first installed it, the custodial staff was like, so do I sweep this or what? Is it the art or do I see? And I was like, leave it, we're leaving it. But this confetti is like so recognizable to people from my homelands. And if you look really, really close, it's a bunch of hole punched Mexican newspapers that are then dyed different colors. So if you like look close, it's Spanish confetti. So like involving that sort of thing and like having it leave its trace, it started this new path of removing like only grief as something that I was thinking of. So while in school, I took a modernist history class where I began to read and become obsessed with Gertrude Stein. Stein wrote absurdist modernist poetry from an undeniably lesbian perspective. This is where it gets gay again. I wrote a paper about lesbian modernism and became fascinated with the poem, This is This Dress, Adir, which I'm going to read you now. It is Gertrude Stein, so I'm letting you know that it does not fully make sense. This is the dress, Adir. This is the dress, Adir, Adir, why, Adir, why, wow, wow, stop, touch, Adir, wow, Adir, stop the muncher, munchers. A jackin kill her, a jackin makes a meadowed king, makes a to let. So this poem that is like truly just a bunch of words and very Gertrude Stein, in it, the word muncher like really stuck out to me. And it hit me in a very deep way because muncher is both an act of consuming and like the idea of like you're munching, you're eating. It's like sort of this hedonistic word, but it's also half of a derogatory term for lesbians. Like carpet muncher is definitely something that is like well known in pop culture as like a lesbian reference. And Gertrude Stein was writing these things, you know, like this book was published in 1914. So sort of like thinking of the way that I was perceiving this and how it felt to me versus how it felt to her. There's a lot of debate about like, is Gertrude Stein actually a trans man? Is Gertrude Stein like a butch lesbian? And those are things that I like. At the time, she identified as a lesbian and had a partner and had a wife and all of those things. And so I'm like letting her have that. But there's definitely a lot of discussion about like gender nonconforming stuff that was also really interesting to me. So with this newfound interest, I began to create collage zines, thinking about hedonism and the demonization and taboo of lesbianism. I have some here if you want to buy one. So these are a collection. The one on the right is collection of poems from Tender Buttons that I've collaged a bunch of personal and also like private stuff in there. And I was a TA in New York where the job was to send a postcard to yourself every week. And I sent a postcard to myself every week going through Tender Buttons and writing myself one of the Tender Buttons poems every week. And then I put those together in this zine with some new stuff. So it was this like really exciting no metals access space. And then on the left, when I was out of grad school and no longer had as much metalsmithing things to do or a private studio, I made the zine about flagging and things that are identified as like lesbian objects. So the interest in devouring, hedonism, and consuming continued to grow as expected by the topics that I'm referencing. While listening to the queer history podcast, Queer as Fact, on a road trip with my partner, I heard a poem that Sophia Parnock wrote about her lesbian lover, which I'm going to read you now again. This one makes much more sense. Oh, my love, my madcap demon, you're so bony that while eating, a cannibal in search of meat would very likely break his teeth. But I am above that sort of crudeness, and besides, I'm somewhat toothless. I won't tear you all to bits, since I'll eat you with my lips. So this was starting to fully connect the idea of like consuming intimacy, lesbianism, and hedonism. And it was like this very beautiful poem written by a Russian poet in the 20th century. So when I first arrived here, I started working on these earrings. They're made of silver, they're in the hallway, and we'll look at them later. But they have been etched into the pattern of a gum wrapper. With the help of Jay Diamond, we set up a rigged Cricut machine to etch parallel lines into this, very in the style of my graduate professor, Mary Helen Peirce, who uses a Cricut machine to cut lead. And then these are plastic casts of molds that I took of gum that I have chewed. And I'd started this a while back, so the gum had had time to like harden and become like a sort of weird rubber substance. It's totally rubber. And I'm also here going back to my ideas of replica and making refuse and trash into like precious, desirable objects. And I love to do this thing where I bring color in with the like weird or gross part. With the pills, it's like the color came from the pills, and here the color's coming from the gum, right? And then I went to Philadelphia with Jay and went into one of my favorite antique shops and took about 1,000 pictures of hair jewelry. This is just like 3. And it's been an obsession of mine for a long time. I am really interested in the ideas of grief and the way that we've moved away from like grief as sort of like a beautiful thing that can coexist with joy and remembrance. And instead we're just kind of like, hide that, let's never talk about it, let's throw everything away. So this was sort of reignited by all of my interest in being here in the East Coast where this stuff exists. This does not exist in New Mexico, if you're wondering. So I was like super, super interested in these sorts of things. And I have had 1,000 pictures of morning jewelry in my phone for as long as I've been consuming art. And so several weeks into my residency, I watched Nanette by Hannah Gadsby, which is an oft-villainized comedy show. I was reluctant in watching it because I had heard on the internet that it was like the death of comedy and the worst thing that you've ever heard, and it was like terrible and everyone hated it and all of this stuff. Turned out that that was happening from a lot of men because I realized that I was the target audience of this piece as a gender nonconforming lesbian. So if you don't like really, it's like it had a lot of in jokes in it. And I was like, oh, And it's also like kind of angry, and I think that that's okay, and people are afraid of that, you know? Um, so the part that really stood out to me and inspired this work about grief, it touched me in a really familiar way. Um, Hannah Gadsby talks about a conversation that she has with her mother, where she says, "But my mom eventually said to me, is pretty much at the core of why I'm questioning comedy. She said to me, 'The thing that I regret is that I raised you as if you were straight. I didn't know any different, and I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I knew, well before you did, that your life was going to be so hard. I knew that, and I wanted more than anything in this world for it to not be the case. And I know I made it worse because I wanted you to change because I knew the world wouldn't.'" So when I first came to the studio, I was thinking about this and the amount of joy and just like pure joy that being a lesbian has brought me, and like being an out dyke and being very, very like active in that. And the fact that like it has had to have been stifled for the world, and it has had to do that, but it's like this sort of tension and fight with each other. So the ideas of grief, joy, and hedonism came together in a series of brooches. I firmly believe that joy and grief are lovers that coexist at the same time. So these pieces bring them together, referencing the traditional Victorian hair jewelry and surrounded by gum pearls. Um, I'm going to be honest, it's only been 3 months, so my thoughts are a bit jumbled still about what these mean to me. And the return to the body, a body with joy, introspection, and grief has been welcome, but is newer. So the combo of hair and gum comes from the girlhood experience of getting gum in your hair and having to cut it off or shave it. You're sort of making this small mistake that ends up in maybe your like first idea of loss of identity through gender expression, or like the importance of gender markers or those sorts of things. Or the opposite, you're like, yeah, I finally get to have the short haircut that I wanted, you know? Um, and also, like, I'm really interested in these materials because they are both undeniably bodily and both undeniably gross. People are super afraid of hair, and this is gum that I have chewed in my mouth and put in my mouth, right? Um, so I'm thinking about that whole experience and referencing these objects. So this right here is one of the pieces that I made. On the back is a bunch of silhouettes of chewed gum, and this front is the silhouettes of blister packages of gum that have been popped open, and it is filled with my hair. And so this is the first thing that I made here. I'm referencing, like, I got a really basic, I looked up a bunch of Victorian jewelry. Not a lot of shapes going on, but I did get this fun one. Um, so for a long time, I was in graduate school and I had to like really try and focus what I was doing. And I had this moment where I was like, oh, I can make something totally crazy that I would have never made before. That's like super literal. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna make a morning jewelry piece that's chewed gum, hair, and it's in the shape of a vulva. Um, and it's actually like referencing a very specific type of jewelry that is historically like, this is morning jewelry would have this shape as well, right? But I really wanted to push it into that like sort of um like experience, and see how far I wanted to take it before I had to pull it back. Um, so this is like a polished brass brooch with woven hair and gum pearls, and on the back there's a hydraulic press formed silhouette of a piece of gum. Um, and that is like protruding and it's covered by the hair. So it's like a little secret. I found this amazing book in the Gutenberg library, which was first shown to me by my mother, which is all of the things that have um, gone out of copyright so they can just be like freely accessed by anybody. And this is like the official hair, how to do hair jewelry thing. It shows you like every step-by-step process. I will say, I'll show you later that it does read like a Gertrude Stein poem sometimes. So I know I needed these tools, so I spent a lot of my time here. It's in the gallery, but I made one of these with scrap material so that I could learn how to actually do this like intricate braiding technique. So yeah, here's the open braid that I did for a lot of my work that's in there. And it's take any number of strands that can be divided by 4, 60 being the usual. And it's like number 1 over number 2, number 4 over number 3, number 4, you know, like it's very complicated and very like you definitely have to get in the position. And this is like the diagram that comes with it. And then it tells you how to like finish it and stuff like that. This was super fulfilling and also very funny because if you've ever read anything that was written in like the late 19th, early 20th century, it is so unnecessary the way that things are not clear at all. Like, then you are through the braid, ready to commence as at first. You're like, cool, I got that. So I learned how to braid the hair and I braided this sort of traditional open weave using my fun little table. And this piece is directly based off of an image of actual like mourning brooch. 2 circles sort of like coinciding. So the inside is filled with gum, and then this is being held together by these little gum pearls like glue. And then on the back is a silhouette of a lock of hair, very, very close up. I didn't put pictures of the back, but they are in there. So that is the end of my presentation. I am going to take y'all to the gallery so you can look at the actual stuff. There's some more stuff in there. And if y'all have any questions and stuff, I will be happy to answer.
So you'll notice that it's very fragrant work. Each one has its own little fun smell. Also, at the end of the hallway, there is a plinth that has gum on it and a little container for you to chew your own piece of gum and then add it to the container for my little catalog of chewed gum. I haven't decided yet. Probably make molds of it. I'm also thinking that I might do like a sort of like, I also do photography, and I'm thinking I might do this like census of gum. We'll see.
Have you thought about the you bring up this idea almost with the test?
Yeah.
And have you thought in terms of wearability for others? Because clearly for you, you're bringing it back to your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of like this jewelry sort of exists in a place where I'm not sure if it's be worn by anyone besides me, and I'm okay with that. I did kind of like adjust some things, the idea that can be wearable for other people. So these sorts of like less actual bodily pieces here, and then over there by the turntables, there's a traditional weave, and inside of those are gum pearls, and they're kind of like covered by the hair, so it's a little bit less like body to body, and there's not a lot of body contact. Like I'm not sure everyone would be comfortable wearing it or having it. I'm like, gum is rubber. I'm not sure how long they're gonna last. They're hard now. Like they're not sticky anymore. So it's not gonna ruin your clothes. But I did think about it. Yeah.
Any other questions, either from anyone here in person or anyone in the chat on Zoom?
I just want to like kind of add to that idea that like, I feel like the scale and everything kind of adds to that like active kind of protest or resistance, you know, like kind of like the way you presented like queer identities is something that's transgressive and that society's not ready for, but it's like people are out there doing it, you know, and it's just like, I don't know, I feel like the work kind of fits in that way, you know, it's like unavoidable, it's in your face, but.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, definitely like bright color is something that is really important to me, and part of that is like the visibility of it. This is the first time I've ever had something that I'm like interested in, but I don't know fully why. The only thing that's like not really pink is the purple piece, which is referencing Sappho, who wrote about violence, about her lover as violets. So it's a violet colored brooch. But yeah, there's something about like the tension between wanting to exist as this like transgressive, like you can't take away my joy, and I am this, and this is what it is, and that's something that I very firmly believe myself. Versus like the real world applications of that, like my partner and I have been turned away from hotels when we're traveling. We've had like discrimination in restaurants. We've been like holding hands on the street and been shouted at. And then this like tension and fear as well. So it's this like double-sided thing for sure. But I love a badge. I made a big lows here. I'm a huge fucking dyke, so.
Can you talk about this piece? I don't think this was.
Yeah, so that is my little turntable that I made in order to braid the hair. They're supposed to be this tall, really long legs, and they're supposed to spin so that like you don't have to turn it around, so that whenever you're like putting 1 over 2 over 3 over 4, like it's fine. This is just made out of like a piece of scrap wood and some dowels. And then in order to have the hair remain taut, like for the braid, they're very springy. They have to be weighted in order to hold them. So these are little like dowels that I put hooks on, and then they're stuffed with metal. They've got like metal rod in them, so they're heavy. And then the center one is this little one that has this little hook that if I wanted to add extra weight, I could.
They're so pretty in and of themselves. Are they like something that you bought, or
I made these.
you made the dowels?
Well, like the dowels are just dowels that I cut them. I got them from the scrap store. What's it called? Scrap?
Yeah.
Scrap store in a bucket for like $2. They were just like piece dowels that someone used for their elementary school class, and I just cut them and carved them, painted them and stuff. Yeah.
And John.
I spent way too much time like sanding them. They're little bobbins, so I was like sanding them so things didn't slip, and they're dowels, so it's like very low quality wood, so they've got some texture. They were fun. The first time I made them, they were binder clips with pennies on the end, and then I realized that the hair just gets crazy tangled. So I pretty much just like worked on it. I worked on those for like a week, set it up, started braiding, and then like stopped after like 2 hours, and I was like, this is done, this is over. I'm over it. And then I went back to the book and I was like, okay, I'll just make that. So yeah.
Do you know, for the history of like hair jewelry, if that was traditionally the diagram, which one?
Oh man, yeah, so generally, like I don't know this for sure. It's something that I'd like to learn more about, but I would say generally like a lot of the crafts like that would be considered masculine crafts, which is really interesting because weaving is considered a feminine craft. Yeah, so it's sort of like this in-between space. Everyone that's mentioned in the book is a man, but everyone who I've seen making contemporary hair is not a man. And I do think that is interesting. Don't really have anything super like thoughtful to say about that, but definitely like it's a dude's book. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So it seems with your transition from work that's primarily focused around grief to this, which is combining grief and joy, I want to know if there was a space in between where you were doing just joy and you went back to combining the two. And I'd also like to know when that shift happened and if there was a specific moment that you were like, yes, this needs to change.
Yeah, so first part was about, I never really made the work that was just about joy. To be honest, I think that if I do, it's like, this is like the beginning of that process. Like this is the first time really that I'm making work where I'm like, oh, actually there's like a lot of joy in this. I was actually talking to someone earlier today where it was like, how do I talk about this work that has joy? I don't know. So I think that there's potential for that to like happen moving forward, but there was not an in between. This is like stepping stone. And then your other question was about how, I mean, it's like probably TMI and boring and stuff, but I was like diagnosed with really serious OCD in grad school and then started treatment for that. And it's kind of been like in that treatment that I've been able to like release myself from a lot of the things that were happening. Yeah, because a lot of my undergrad thesis was, or my grad thesis was about like this impending doom feeling, which then was discovered to be OCD. So as soon as like that happened, I still have that stuff and it's like still definitely a thing, but definitely like mental health. It's like people always say like the sad artist, like Van Gogh and stuff, you make work when you're happy to. In fact, you probably make more. And you probably like it better, you know.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. That's like, it's not a secret, it's in my thesis. It's published.
Talk about what's behind you on that plan.
Oh yeah, these are my little samples. So as part of the 3-month residency here, I was able to take 2 courses. And I took Molly Schulman. And I use those as kind of like a fun excuse to do some things that I've like never done, sort of thing. So this is sort of like the wrapping paper replica. It's a gum box that I started replicating. It's not finished yet. I don't know where it's going to be, somewhere. And then this is like a little gum brush that I carved out of wood and the bristles are hair. And it's just kind of cheeky. And it looks like some weird tumor.
I thought it was a huge wad of fun.
No, it's wood.
Here, I can't see it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, apparently it's very difficult to get like organic shapes carved into things that are believable. And I only know that because it took me the whole class, like the whole weekend. I thought it was cool. I mean, what is gum? What isn't gum? You'll never know.
New
You're probably
Netflix
not gonna
show.
touch it.
It's a new Netflix show.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
gum?
Is it gum? That was my undergrad or my grad school thesis. Is it real? Is it fake? Who knows? And that's it. Is it gum? Is it plastic? Is it wood? Gotta touch it. Any other questions?
We have time for about 1 or 2 more questions if anyone has any, either here in person or in the chat on Zoom.
Have you got the vision for what's going to come next?
I have no. Yeah, I have no idea what's gonna come next. Which is like simultaneously it's scary and it's it might be something totally different, but it will probably involve stuffing stuff into other stuff. If I'm being honest. Yeah. And powder coat. Likely.
Is that it on questions? I think it might be. Thank you so much to Shaunia. As a friendly reminder, just like all of our other programming, residencies are made possible through a combination of people who take classes and people who donate to the Baltimore Jewelry Center. If you want to do that, the link is baltimoreJewelryCenter.org/donate. And having access to funding makes it possible for us to have people like Shaunia in the studio making work like this. In addition to donation, we have spring classes opening for registration right now. Some of our classes have already started, but there are plenty that haven't and are still enrolling. And we also have another artist talk coming up by our 1-month mid-career resident, Tony Maynor. I believe that's next Thursday. So I hope to see all of y'all back for that.
Shiny things are saliva.
How'd you know?
Ah, we sit next to each other. There's not a lot of spitting going on here. Alright. Please feel free to chew some gum and put it in my weird gum jar or not. You can just chew the gum as well. You don't have to give me your weird gum.
I recommend the green apple.
Huh?
Oh, I
I
like
recommend the green.
The green apple is, oh yeah, little tidbit, sorry this is going. These are the gums that I ate as a kid, and they're like little Mexican gums, and I found fruit flavors for the first time in my life, and I'm really excited about it. All right, bye y'all, thank you so much.